Welcome to my channel. This is the second lecture because in the first lecture I had given you a brief outline of the history of CPC. Now today what we are going to discuss is that how the sections and the orders have been divided in the CPC. There are 9 parts in the section while 1 to 50 are the orders given in the CPC. Part 1 deals with the suits, part 2 deals with the executions, and the other part deal with the various provisions of law regarding suits, miscellaneous proceedings, rules, reference, review, revision. So every part has its own importance. As far as the orders are concerned, the orders have been divided in 4 parts. Now from order 1 to rule 20 deals only with the suits, which lay down the procedure which is to be followed right from the start of the suit till the decision of the suit and writing of the judgment, which ends up in Rule 20. Then comes a middle order, which is Order 21. Order 21 is on one side, while the entire CPC is on the other side. Order 21 relates to the procedure regarding the executions which are to be followed by the civil courts. So this is a big order consisting of various rules in which every procedure in which the execution has to be followed, filed, requisites, etc. have been given. Now comes Order 21 to Rule 39 or Rule 40. These rules deal with the procedure which relate to the various stages of the suit. What can be the stages of the suit? Suppose A files a suit against B. A dies during the pendency of the suit. Then what will happen? If a minor has to file the suit, then what has to happen? If the defendant wants to alienate the property or mortgage the property, then whether the property can be attached, what is the law regarding or the procedure regarding the filing of the suits on behalf of a insane person or a minor person or on behalf of the firms, how the procedure is governed by the fact that if a person does not have the requisite court fees to pay as prescribed under various states, then what is the procedure? How he can file the suit that has been separately provided. Then comes the injunctions. That is the most important part. Injunctions are temporary relief which is given during the pendency of the case. A person wants to alienate the property during the pendency of the suit, or he wants to create hurdles in the ultimate execution of the decree, then whether the court has the power to grant the interim relief, because as far as permanent injunction is concerned, that is governed under Specific Relief Act. Under Specific Relief Act, permanent injunction can be granted. But under the Specific Relief Act, no provision has been made for the grant of a temporary injunction. So temporary injunction is governed by Order 39 provided in the CP. Then suppose a partnership firm is there. There is a dispute between the firm partners and the business is being run. Then whether the receiver can be appointed who can govern the business or not, that has to be seen. You may have often heard that a receiver has been appointed. Now, what are the conditions for the appointment of a receiver? How the procedure of the receiver is to be regulated, and the other miscellaneous rules regarding that. There comes an end to the miscellaneous proceedings from Order 22 to Rule 40 of the CPC. Now, the matter does not end here. It is the decision of the suit. Now, if one intends to file an appeal against the order, then what is the procedure? Then comes Order 41. 41 again is a complete code in itself as far as the appeals are concerned. The entire process which has been given, or entire procedure which has been given for governing the suits, is contained in Order 41. How the appeal has to be filed, what will happen, how the additional evidence can be held, what are the powers of the court, when the case can be remanded. All those provisions are there in the said order, because that is also a complete code in itself. That is, rather, we can say, a summary of the entire CPC, which has been provided by the legislature in its wisdom in Order 41. Now comes appeal from the interim orders, because appeals are of two types. One is a regular appeal, and second is appeal from the interim orders. Certain interim orders have been made appealable under section of the CPC, and then the details of uh, those sections or those orders where the appeal can be filed, or against the orders against which the appeal can be filed, has been provided in Order 43. 43 specifies the specific orders which are made appealable. If no provision has been made for filing an appeal against the order, then the converse will happen. Then that order will become revisable, against which no appeal is maintainable, because the revisional jurisdiction under section 115 lies only with the Honorable High Court. Then comes Order 44. Now you will be surprised to learn that Order 33 deals with the procedure if a person is indigent, or earlier he was called a pauper. Pauper means a person who does not have the proper court fees to pay, proper means to pay the court fees or to bear the expenses, but he has a list, he has a dispute regarding which he intends to file the suit. So that procedure is given in Order 33. Now in appeal also, if a decree has been passed, then what will happen and how he can file the appeal, that has been provided in Order 44. Now it is very easy to remember that Order 33 deals with the suits regarding the indigent persons, whereas Order 44 deals with the appeals which are to be filed by the indigent persons, the persons who are not having sufficient means to pay the court fees. Then comes reference, review, and revision. Reference, review, and revision are contained in section 113, 114, and 115 of the CPC. The procedure regarding the filing of the review, reference, or revision has been given in detail in Order 45, 46, etc. And then the miscellaneous orders, rules are to be framed and all that. And if we remember or analyze the various provisions of CPC, now within 10 minutes we have given, or we can come to know about the summary of the entire CPC. Otherwise, if we read the entire CPC, then it becomes a nightmare for us to remember it. But if we split up the CPC in such a easy way, then it is very easy for us to remember that how the CPC has been framed. Now that is not the end of the matter. Then there are appendix which are attached to the CPC. In the appendix, the frame of the suit, pleadings, letter statement, various forms, summons, judgments, and all other procedural law, how this notice has to be issued, in what form the notice has been issued. Specimens are there because legislature has not left anything to imagination. Everything which you can conceive regarding the procedure you will find in CPC. That is why the CPC was passed in 1908 and we have not been able to make any of the changes in the CPC. The alleged changes made by the legislature in 2002 are of cosmetic nature. They are not substantive. They have created a rather more confusion than the earlier CPC because the earlier CPC is a complete code in itself which required no modifications and there was no justification at all for making any such amendments in the CPC. So when we study the CPC in parts, that is logical parts, not illogical parts, we divide the CPC in various parts and we understand and read the CPC in that manner, then it becomes a very easy subject for us to understand and to follow and to make it practical in our day-to-day practice of law. As far as practice of law is concerned, if you are practicing on the civil side, then knowledge of Code of Civil Procedure and the various provisions is a must. At every step of the suit, the substantive law is not applicable. Substantive law comes only when you address the final arguments that this is the law, according to this law, this has to be done. But how it has to be done and in what manner it has to be done, that has been given in this CPC. So sometimes you are facing such trouble or such queries which you find that they are not provided in the CPC. But that is not the correct approach. That is a wrong approach. I tell you of one of my experiences. In one of the cases, the property was attacked by the court of additional session judge, additional district judge, whereas the property was also attacked by the district judge. So the question before the district judge arose that whether the earlier attachment will be applicable or will the second attachment made by the court of district judge will be applicable. So the question of property of sale of property was there, that which court can order the sale of the property. It was a very ticklish question and it is very mind-boggling that as to what will happen, because otherwise, seeing by logic, it is the first court which has attached the property for the first time is competent to sell the property. When I went deep into the matter, I found that there is a particular section in the CPC which says that if a senior court attaches the property, though subsequently, but the subsequent court of higher jurisdiction has the power to order for the sale of the property. So, meaning thereby, it is a just example. I will be teaching or we will be discussing that section itself when we in the during course of our discussion on various aspects of CPC. Now, if you like my lecture or my discussion, please subscribe to my channel. You can write your comments, and if you have any queries regarding these discussion which we have made, I will be pleased to answer the questions, and we will start our journey of learning the CPC in a very easy way, because my way is totally different. When a person comes to you for filing a case, then how you have to proceed and what are the stages, and if we cover those stages one by one and all the orders you will remember by heart. कभी आपको सोते हुए भी कोई जगा लेना और पूछे कि किस ऑर्डर में क्या लिखा है, then you will be able to tell that okay, this is the order. You don't have to remember it, because when you see a movie, when you see a particular scene in a movie, you immediately say that this is this such and such movie. How do you remember it? Because you don't remember it. Similarly, the question of CPC is there, and in that way, if anyone at random will ask a question as to what order will be applicable, then you will be able to answer the said query immediately without any hitch. Now, lastly, the students who have joined LLB courses or who have passed LLB course and have joined practice must go through my book, Become a Successful Advocate, which I have written regarding the law students as well as the new entrants in the profession. This book is available on Amazon. You can order it. You can go through it. It is in a very simple and lucid language, and it will be of immense help to the students in attempting the exams, preparing for the exams, preparing for the competitive exams, and if one intends to join the practice, then it will be of immense help to him in joining the practice. Thank you. We'll see you in the next discussion. Thank you.